18 here in Huntington Beach, right there. And it's a lovely October day. The surf is up big time. Look at that. Guys out there getting all kinds of waves. Check it out. See if we can catch anybody actually riding a wave. That guy's taking off. Dropping in. Ooh, he fell down. These men are headed out right now. There's a longshore current. There's guys. Oh, he's tearing it up. Yeah, off the lip. Down there. Everywhere. Guys surfing everywhere. But as for me, it's time for me to do my book reading. So I'll set up, do my thing, and then after that I'll hop in for a swim. There's still time to join me. Come on down if you're within shooting range. I'm right here. Just come park. Free parking. Lots of free parking right there. Don't park on Pacific Coast Highway. Just park a little further back. I come every day, and there's always free parking. Just come on down the 17th Street steps. Traipse over here on the sand. You'll find me and my towel. And if you can get here within an hour or so, you can come swim with me. Let's read. Excuse me. There, that looks good enough. All right. So today I'm going to be reading from the chapter titled The Good Life, which is the resultant consequence of going alone, of my effort of going alone. You know, it could seem like a one-way street heading out into the emptiness alone. And it could be a one-way street. It could be a pretty bad place to go. In fact, if you're not careful. I put lots of cautions in the book. I even thought about putting a cautionary, pounding a stake out there in the desert to add a bit of caution, but I didn't do that. But if you can get back, if you don't go too long, don't go too far, because you can go too far and come back and lose all relevance. If you can get back in time, then I did leave a chapter there called The Good Life, which is what I built of the effort of going alone, the life that I made for myself, the values that I created, the objectives that I established, the principles that I put into place, the meaning that I attempted to forge from the awful aspect of a universe without inherent meaning. So let's begin. The chapter titled The Good Life. And that title is a nod to the Stoics, to be sure. Okay, so this chapter begins, as all of these chapters do, with an illustration. That's a drawing by my daughter I commissioned for her to make of a rock with an inscription on it that says, "Nothing is enough," which is one of the last principles in the Good Life Creed. So imagine finding that in the desert, which the desert speaks that message on its own, in fact. So then we'll begin with a quote, and then we'll get started in earnest. The Good Life, creating a life of meaning. Here's the quote. He could not bear the indifference of life any longer. He could not endure being cast off and thrown back on himself again and again. No home on earth, no God in heaven, no goal out there in the future. He would at least have a home. He would make it his own by loving everything there, big and little, every rock, every tree, the animate and the inanimate. He would portion out his heart to it all so that it could never cast him off again. That's a quote by Jens Peter Jacobsen, and when I encountered that quote, I realized that was the perfect lead-in to this chapter, because that's exactly the sentiment that I felt after my own experience of going alone. Let's do it. The Good Life meditation is my daily effort of recounting, considering, and developing my personal life objectives and principles. I perform this activity in the morning, usually on my way to work, as a start and readiness to the coming day, and as a reminder of the best life practices I have so far uncovered and made my own. With practice, the effort has become as familiar and refreshing as making and enjoying a hot cup of coffee, leaving me fortified and invigorated for whatever the day may hold. And for the record, I still do this each and every day. I never miss a day. Even when I'm sick, I still do it. or reciting the Good Life Creed. Almost every single day I will actually make a video and upload it as well, and a corresponding blog post and all that goes with that. If I'm very, very, very sick, which is rarely that ever happens, I will just do it in my head. But almost every day, this Good Life exercise, which came about of going alone, is the thing that I do. It sustains my life. Note, I periodically record this activity on video to upload to a special YouTube playlist titled The Good Life. And I still do that too, and I've had 5 seasons so far. I'm in the middle of season 5 right now. I recommend watching one of these videos for more in-depth coverage of each point, as well as personal examples of how I apply these objectives and principles to my own daily challenges. The playlist URL is included in the appendix. That would be appendix item number 9. Affirmation of human and civil rights. I must recognize, this is a little disclaimer, small print before I jump into it. I must recognize, respect, and abide the rights of individuals and the smaller groups within society, such that these are not compromised in the pursuit of the common good. So I put that in kind of like as a little footnote at the start, so to speak, right there, just before I jump into the creed, because I want to remember as I begin to apply these principles towards the objectives, I want to do so in a judicious manner and not at the expense of the weak. Here we go. 8 objectives. Oh wow, so this is a newer copy of the book that's actually got all 8. I wonder if it has 35 principles. Let's see. That would be the trick. 34 principles. So it's not it's a newer copy of the book, but not new enough to have all 35. I'm always making edits and adjustments to the book, and it takes a couple of months for it to catch up in the print form. 8 objectives. 1. Be always ready to die, or become infirm or old. And a quote by Dr. Johnson. So let's put on Dr. Johnson's mien. That we must all die, we always knew. I'm not doing a good job. That we must all die, we always knew. No, he wouldn't say it that way. That we must all die, we always knew. I wish I had sooner remembered it. I was just reading yesterday, I'm reading a book about the writing of the life of Samuel Johnson by James Boswell, and I'm realizing now how much of a curated image Boswell created of Johnson. So the character that I'm trying to put into play right now may not be actually how Johnson spoke in fact, but may have been an artificial character that Johnson was portraying to Boswell because he knew that Boswell would one day write his life. Try it one more time. Be always ready to die, or become infirm or old. That we must all die, we always knew. I wish I had sooner remembered it. Dr. Johnson. And now me. At all times, and that's how all each of these goes. There's a title, you can just take a look. There's a title of the principle, sometimes there's a quote, and then I launch into the me part. At all times, have every important life affair in order. My decided purpose, my household and finances, as well as my connections, obligations, responsibilities, and commitments. Have also my art in a state of readiness to carry on as my only real legacy and potential lasting memory after I am gone. My last photo taken, my last sketch complete, my final word penned and saved. No letters left to write, no goodbyes left to speak, no one left to hug. To be ready now and at a moment's notice to loosen my grip when life is done all at once, and then fall into darkness without a single backward glance or backwards thought or longing backwards memory. Likewise, to be prepared if I am no longer able to care for myself due to infirmity or old age. The last part, I didn't read that very well, did I? Likewise, to be prepared if I am no longer able to care. What I meant by that, I think, was to be prepared to die, right? To be prepared maybe even to off myself. 2, make good and effective use of time and resources. To make good use of these few moments, to make good use of these few moments right now, and to dwell very little on past utilization, other than to use such memory to inform my judgment in the direction of improved forward progress. to also make good use of whatever resources are at my disposal, not just for increase, but to spend, share, give, or apply these resources well, and in ways which are in accord with my life objectives and principles. Below are examples of some of the things I would like to be caught doing when death comes at last to utterly snuff out my life. And now follows is a bulleted list of a whole bunch of things that I would be quite happy to be doing when death comes. Here we go. Breathing slow and measured breaths. Controlling my emotions. Thinking and acting deliberately. Remembering and acting upon my responsibilities. Preparing a good meal. Eating well and very little. Helping others. Being attentive to my family. Providing good value to my employer. Learning something startlingly new. Reading an excellent book. Memorizing poetry which moves me. Imagining the future. Enjoying good music. Listening to a good lecture, discussion, or debate. Challenging what I believe. Changing my mind for good reason. Admitting that I was wrong. Apologizing when necessary. Becoming uncomfortable. Withstanding discomfort. Suffering well and longer than I thought I could. Standing, walking, swimming, or simply moving. Making a pet happy. Picking up litter. Accurately recounting the idea of another. Sleeping deeply. Discovering I am wrong. Remembering death. That one, accurately recounting the idea of another, there's a whole lot tied up in that. If I can do so, if I can accurately recount what someone tells me, that means that 1, I was listening well, 2, my cognition is in good working order, 3, I'm communicating clearly. That's the whole package right there. Objective number 3. Develop and maintain good and sound life principles. And a quote, do justice and let the skies fall. It's actually a Roman proverb. I will secure early in life good rules to live by, objectives and principles which are accurate and true. I will then dedicate some time each day to using, testing, and refining these objectives and principles. Over time, I will make a small catalog of only the soundest truths I have found, which I will then number and recount each day for the purpose of further discovery and self-guidance. Finally, I will share what I have found through the example of my words and actions and my best effort of living a good and sound life. 4. Cultivate good emotional reactions. I will take control of my emotions such that these inform my living more than control it. Feelings and reactions will then become life counselors rather than rulers and chiefs. Through this effort, I will create and reflect a life of equanimity, through inward control and a resulting outward peace. I will remember that life is lived as one upon a seashore, noting and living according to the tides, which fall now with feelings of low regard towards our purpose and meaning and well-being, followed later by rising spirits and outlook, with the fresh, clean flood flowing in, temporary, here for a short season, before the ebb comes again to frustrate, confuse, and concern us in an always recurring cycle of lows and highs and lows again once more. I just chose deliberately in that sentence to close on the lows, because life will always close on a low of a greater or lesser degree. 5. Perform good actions. My deeds should be worthy of a life spent working to pass each day as an improvement, not only for myself and my family, but also for those with whom we share life now, as well as those in the future who will receive this common inheritance. I would say that my delivery this week of my very first in-person AI connection-free training session was an example of that. Performing good actions, attempting to do good, leverage my background and skill in IT and my interest in AI and communication to good ends, good community-focused ends, virtue-focused ends, no less. 6. recognizing true limits and true opportunity. I will strive to live life in honest recognition of my true scope of control, which extends no further than my thoughts, actions, and reactions and the consequences these might entail. I will ask myself how I may craft favorable ends from any circumstance. What misfortune do I not have the power to fashion into some instrument of virtue? Is it death now at the door? Do I bar the way? For the hour of our meeting is truly at hand, and I will not attempt to detain in vain any will, force, or consequence which is truly beyond my control. And what role apathy in my discernment and vain engagement with a universe beyond the scope of my small control? And what reach must I attempt beyond the near pale illumination of reason? Number 7. One thing slowly. Do only one thing at a time and do that thing slowly. I will try hard to never take on 2 activities or entertain 2 thoughts at the same time. In addition, I will pursue each activity or thought slowly. If I find this limit difficult to maintain, then clearly I have accepted more responsibility than I can reasonably handle. Of course, there will be times I am unable to maintain this workload or ratio due to deadlines or other necessities. However, in hindsight, I will try to identify where I went wrong and how I managed to let my workload or responsibilities get so out of control that I had to multitask. I will do this in order to try and avoid making the same mistake in the future. I will then learn from my error and become more mature for the effort. The benefit of this objective may be self-evident in my improved ability to focus my attention on whatever is most important in the current moment. Moving and thinking slowly further improves these efforts by ensuring I make good and well-considered choices and actions which are less prone to mistake or costly redo. Over time, I will become able to do more with less and make better ends of whatever means I find and enjoy a more relaxed and considered living at both work and play. Objective number 8. This is the final objective. Balance. And this is the first time I think that this objective has appeared in the book, because I only added it like 2 months ago. Balance. The difficult thing of keeping, so what that means is this is the first time I've read it aloud. Balance. The difficult thing of keeping upright and straight and walking forward without too much stagger or sway. Off to a good start. So given that this is the first time I've read this aloud, I'm prone to find mistakes. I didn't bring a yellow pen to marker because I don't find mistakes very much anymore because I've read the book so many damn times and caught all of the errors. But this is a chance. I might find an error here, but off to a good start. Let me try that again. Balance, number 8. The difficult thing of keeping upright and straight and walking forward without too much stagger or sway. It's no easy thing when ambush comes our way, or when our limbic system kicks in with suggestions, drives, and sudden emotions we did not expect. Like a tightrope walker stepping carefully on the narrow way, with an open expanse below and sway and movement everywhere about. I will strive to not fall just now or tomorrow, and I will walk each day ready for whatever winds or blinding sunlight or rain or sudden storm or long expanse of burning sun or the tedium of no change may come my way. I'm pleased with that. That's good. So I think that came out the way I wanted it to. It's funny because that's the first one also that I was tempted to use AI to write. But just for the record, there will be no AI in this particular book. Okay, those are the 8 objectives. So those are the things that I'm striving for by virtue of the Good Life Creed. Now, let's look at the 34 principles. In fact, there's a 35th principle, the principle of being ready. Sounds like a Boy Scout, huh? 34 principles. Number 1, principle of war. I rise each morning taking arms first against my own philosophy and beliefs, and secondly against the philosophy and beliefs of others. I will suffer no unsound or unjust objective or principle to survive my honest, reasoned critique, no matter the consequence to my sense of peace, comfort, or abiding worldview. I will equally yield to the warfare of another against my precious truths when these are shown to be unsound or dishonest in any way. 2. Principle of reason. The sub-principles here are honesty, objectivity, doubt, and humiliation. And a quote, "The life of reason is best and pleasantest, since reason, more than anything else, is man. So too, this life is also the happiest." That's by Aristotle. Reason is my first instrument of reconciling hypothesis with truth. To be effective, I must be honest with myself and others regarding what I know and do not know, and make pains to view the world objectively, without coloring reality too much with imagination fortified of want or need or fear or the normalizing pressure of authority, tradition, and unfounded consensus. Doubt is my default stance and starting point for every new venture of inquiry, and humiliation at my own realized folly, the surest sense that I am on the right track of correcting my own wrongs. Reason, at its best, is a tool of self-immolation, turned first inward as I seek to burn away the chaff and waste of unprincipled living, and then outward in resistance of our species' less worthy answers to the mysteries of life. Principle number 3, the homunculus. This is the small, mute, and hidden man within my head, the imaginary mortal who seemingly pulls my levers and strings and hints at my opinions and judgments, and who must die utterly upon the failure and dissolution of my person. The homunculus is as imaginary as a soul, though a much better vehicle to remind myself that consciousness is nothing more than another organ of my body, serving a particular function, and as subject to corruption and death in the end as my spleen, liver, or any other bodily organ. Number 4, the Anchorhold, which pairs up with the homunculus quite nicely. I put them there deliberately. All of the principles are ordered in a very particular manner to build one off or the other, or to group them according to their association and just relation. Like sometimes I'll consider them groups of 4 or 5. This is a group of 2. The homunculus and the Anchorhold belong together in that order. The Anchorhold, the place where we suffer and die. There is an inward architecture which we create through the fact and consequence of our decisions and actions, which becomes the scaffolding structure of the inner man or woman who others may dimly see when they look us square in the eyes, perceiving a light or darkness within which shines or empties in proportion to the effort we have made to not just live, but to live well, and in accord with our perceived nature and better inclination. We fail utterly when we build our inner world solely guided by the prescribed blueprint precedent of others, which guidance may suffice to create grand and stately outward living, but may leave us inwardly hollow and empty in the end. When we are alone within our outer world, and we look at what we have and do possess and have made, and we wonder what we may have seemingly missed, and if somehow there may be more. Why are we so outwardly filled, yet so inwardly empty? Our home, then, a stable and impressive castle of outward success and seemingly worthwhile achievement and acclaim, resting upon an inner foundation of shifting sand. Elsewhere in the book, that particular principle is illustrated with an image that my daughter Emily made of the people standing on the rocks in the sea. 5, the home of good and evil. And a quote, "Activity in accordance with virtue is virtue." That's by Aristotle. A catalogue of right and wrong maintained by that little mortal within my head, containing both opinion and judgment, and suggestive of a platform of subjective responsibility. The homunculus owns this list and has the responsibility to develop and vet its contents, as well as reconcile these with the reasoned opinions of others. Good and evil then become perspective and opinion, dangerously subjective, yet also subject to the truth-finding powers of reason, honesty, and objectivity. Argument and discussion are the tools of reconciliation when such opinions differ, and consensus reached in this way has more authority and force than the proclamations and commandments of 1,000 fictitious gods. Number 6, the principle of purpose. Sub-principles are biology, duty, virtue, and mission. And if you read the bit below that follows, usually I fold in the sub-principles in as I described. Here's a quote. Active in indolence, abroad who roam, in quest of happiness which dwells at home. With vain pursuits fatigued, at length will find its real dwelling is a virtuous mind. That's by Dr. Zimmerman. I was so delighted when I found that quote in my reading. I went, that's perfect. Here we go. My first purpose is to live and reproduce, before then dying and getting the hell out of the way. I will also perform my duty. 30 years of life dedicated to improved societal ends. I'm actually overdue. I'm at about 36 years now. As well as 25 years of service to my kid, which work is largely complete when she is done with school. Beyond that, it's up to each of us to decide what our own personal purpose will be. For myself, I select the purpose of virtue, where virtue is defined as a life lived in furtherance of the well-being of thinking things. And my mission is the series of goals I set for myself to achieve over the successive years of my life. I remember I added that in pretty recently and put in the bit about the 25 years, which I've since reduced down to 23 years, based on the actual experience of raising Emily and getting her through college. So 23 to 5. 25 is a good start, but you can revise that down to about 23. What I mean by that is when the clock starts ticking from the moment she says, I'm pregnant. 23 to 25 years of service of life lived in the service of your child. Fully. Every child deserves that. And it is our obligation and responsibility that we cannot shirk from. We should not shirk from. Number 7, the atomic principle. The sub-principles here are disillusion and emergence. And a quote. All things change to fire, and fire, exhausted, falls back into things. That's a quote from Heraclitus. Everything in the universe is bits and pieces, flowing and changing, forever transforming and becoming. So too you and me, here for a bit, soon to pass, soon to dissolve, never again this thing once more. When remembering this principle, I will often pick up a handful of sand or dirt to let sift through my fingers in the blowing sand. I used to do that in the desert. Now I do it on the beach. In the blowing wind, that is. I said sand. Principle number 8, the principle of nature. And I added a bit here from that poem that goes through the book? It's a poem that I wrote really, really early on, before I even started writing the book, before I even wrote The Path of Wildness. It goes like this. It's just 4 or 5 lines. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. That little bit of poem that I wrote in Japan sums up the whole book. And I added here a beast track through the brush, because this one right here captures that, the principle of nature, the nature of things, sensing that, knowing it, listening to it. Everything and everyone has some qualities and character which define what they are and what they are about. This nature, combined with perspective and will, is their paradigm and operational guide. The demands of biology, capital B, I'm not talking about the natural science of biology, I'm talking about the circumstance of this whole thing of life, are a mandate deep and sound from the perspective of survival and the continuance of our kind. I ask myself at every chance, what is the nature of things I will meet and interact with today? What are the natures of the people I know and with whom I share life? And what is my own nature? What am I made of and where am I going? Knowing these things will help me to engage better and more reasonably with everyone and everything. Principle number 9, the pirate ride. A funny name for a principle. I got this idea when I was at just Disneyland at the Pirates of the Caribbean, watching the automaton pirates and the dog and all the things doing their thing, and I realized that's us, kind of just operating in a more complex manner, really just engaging in the programming of our biological nature, our genetics, and the epigenetics of the overall circumstance. Just like these young men following their programming. The pirate ride. And here I have the course of the stream, written just below that. There's no good reason to imagine we are anything but atoms and molecules. More sand, right? And compounds and organs, and muscles and limbs, and brain and mind, instantiated through energy borrowed of the sun, and the internal heat of the earth, in alignment with the inertia of the universe. That is it. In a sense, a very crude sense, we are complex chemical reactions, natural processes, unwinding through brief years, months, and days towards some conclusion which a sufficiently powerful computer algorithm might one day plot and predict. I wrote that long before I thought about AI, right? We are decision engines driven by the universe at large. In a sense, our destiny was always set, with our deliberations and decisions being just some distinct moments of seeming agency along our chemical unwinding from conception to death, a pathway we could hardly avoid or choose otherwise, a route decided not by us, but instead by the complex orchestrations of a universe which delivered us into life and mindlessly conspires during every moment we live to nudge and jostle us into every decision and action we vainly think our own. Life, a purposeless river-like meander. The course of a stream, right? We live, we experience, we think, we decide, and we move, but never truly of our own volition, and always on the path of our law-bound chemical unwinding. Life, therefore, is like a Disney theme park pirate ride, an unintentional horror, joy, and amusement in which the robot pirates and the living riders are one. We live our lives then along a seemingly invisible track we can never jump or escape, for we lack utterly the will to do anything but stay our course. And though we can make any decisions we like, we can never have made any decisions other than the ones we did. So this is also my argument, this particular principle, the pirate ride, my argument for my belief that we do not have free will. Free will is an illusion. We are not determined by the universe, but we are compatible with the universe. There's just too much seeming randomness in the subatomic world to be able to say that our lives are determined in any particular way, but we are compatible with the world around us. And therefore free will is an illusion. Can't prove it, but I hold that principle on faith. Yes, I'm guilty of the sin of faith. Principle number 10, the principle of maturity. The sub-principles here are wisdom, fortitude, and integrity. Maturity is a finely curated collection of experience gained of life trials, both succeeding and failing, and recalled with some accuracy and honest consideration towards improved future ends. Wisdom is the soil where such considerations are plowed, while fortitude is the will and persistence to see the harvest through, and integrity maintains our sound constitution. See how I folded in those sub-principles right into it in a very brief paragraph covering that one. Number 11, the social principle. The sub-principles here are diplomacy, justice, and conspiracy. And a quote, "Society is the true sphere of human virtue." Dr. Johnson. God, when I first encountered that quote, I realized how perfectly it would fit there. I should say it like Dr. Johnson. Society is the true sphere of human virtue. Human beings generally operate in pursuit of our own well-being and the well-being of one another. We can survive alone, though we rarely flourish in solitude, and we risk that whatever understanding and wisdom we gain in deep and persistent disconnect may not be easily communicated or translated to others, and may become irrelevant babble, despite perhaps being true. Therefore, find one another and make good effort to be together and share ideas, go alone at times, but always return to be with others. I will become a diplomat and ambassador to not only the familiar, but also the strange and new. I will strive always with others towards sane and just ends, become a man or woman of one another. We will conspire together towards what we perceive and decide is good. These are lofty goals, something I struggle daily to attain. Principle number 12, the principle of family, and the sub-principle here is catalyst. Our people make up the context of our lives in terms of purpose, obligation, mission, feedback, support, and ultimately the best and almost intangible part of being alive. We begin with the people to whom we are born, the chance family which we gain by accident of birth. We grow then with the family we later decide, our friends and our partners and our spouse, and the children we in turn make together. From these we gain our decided mission and our direction and our guidance forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, till death or very good cause do us part. Without this connection and circumstance, we can still live a rich and meaningful life, though the way may be harder at times as we strive with less mandate, catalyst perhaps, to compel us through thick and thin, less necessity to push us out the door to our jobs on days when we'd rather not, and though through many years and decades of hard work, sacrifice, and giving, the very selfless endeavors which yield virtue from the dawning chaos of our lives rising and falling and one day utterly failing. And if, once dead, we've left behind the fact and echo of our virtuous living within the family we formed and supported and maintained, then our life will hardly have been lived in vain, even if everything is eventually one day in vain. Number 12, 13 that is, public speaking. A quote. Sub-principles first. Sub-principles of public speaking are best words, prudence, felicity, eloquence, literature, rumor, and gossip. And a quote. To him that ordereth his conversation aright, will I show the salvation of God. That's a quote from the Bible, Psalm 50:23. Speak and communicate always as though any person being spoken of is standing directly before us and attentive to our every word. In this way we shall not gossip or pass idle time at the expense of another. Use few words and just the right words to cautiously convey our meaning in alignment with our thoughts and emotions, avoiding verbal flourish unnecessary to our intent, or the adornment of our ideas with words irrelevant to our more Spartan meaning. Read great writing for the benefit of example and precedent, and never spread stories or trade in the misfortune or folly of others. 14. Temperance and the sub-principles of suffering, simplicity, and apathy. And another quote. Keep your tongue and your belly under control. That's Anthony the Great. Temperance is the controlled consumption of all things, such as food and drink, work and play, and even our thoughts and emotions. I will strive to recognize these consumables and measure out a reasonable portion for myself, and then strive to consume very little of that. Such worthy living naturally entails some suffering which we deny ourselves when we deny ourselves our wants, though a simple life makes this easier when the denial becomes part and parcel of our habit and the conditioned response. Habits and conditioned response. I will then apply apathy towards the intemperance of others, as well as any personal misadventure which is beyond my control. I will recognize my own excess and that of my peers, and then use apathetic indifference as a buffer to prevent my consumption of the feast of offal, which is reference to principle number 18. Is that right? Yeah, it is. Good. Here we go. Number 15. Life will not go well. I'll be damned if I don't nearly always stumble, trip, slip, or otherwise get bounced around, turn backwards, and have the hardest time keeping a straight line towards the objects and ends I set myself to reach or achieve. It's like life is this imperfectly evaluated landscape of changing textures, seasons, and weather. where winds suddenly gust from one side and slippery ice appears on the ground in a shady hollow, or a lurking beast stalks and jumps from behind, and a friend hails us demanding our time and attention, and our bodies complain and yield to fatigue, disease, and our ever-increasing weakness of capacity and uncertainty regarding want. That we ever get anything we've set out for is an amazing feat, demonstrative of strong object principles, seemingly indefatigable will, that's a hard word, indefatigable will, and a wisdom arrived at by way of experience, reflection, and resolve. Life will not go well, but we certainly can if we try. Number 16, the horror show. The recognized consequence of a universe unfolding beyond reach of our care or ministrations, and the awful evidence that there is no overarching management or oversight beyond the descriptive record we make and share with one another of how things operate, and the necessity which physics, chemistry, and time does seemingly demand of us all. At last, we stand with our hands at our sides and our mouths agape and our minds at wit's end as the unfolding tale of what is moves on without notice or care of what we want or think is good or right or simply humane. It just moves forward, leaving everyone behind. We will all be left behind in the wake of horror. Number 17, that which must be born. Sub-principle, hand on the tiller. Life presents us with various burdens of many sorts, tasks, duties, responsibilities, as well as circumstances both apprehended and unexpected, which we must shoulder, lift, and carry despite our will, want, attitude, health, and even our desire. These are the things which we simply must do to fulfill our living mandate. Sure, some choose to not carry such burdens, though they do so not without consequence. Therefore, as long as this is what we must be and do and how we must live, then why not press forward with a smile and eyes lifted towards the sun and the stars and the light, which is the better part of our lives? Let us press on despite the weight, move forward in spite of our fatigue, and live on while mindful and feeling and suffering our weak bodies, frail minds, and inevitable consequent death. Steady our course, declares the master from the deck. Hold the rudder tight against the wind and against the current and the against current. Wait, hold on. Hold the rudder tight against the wind and the against current, and your fear and your doubt and upset and sense of drift and loss and ambush, even by the force of seeming nature. What is this? This is new stuff. I must have added this in. I don't remember this, and it looks like it's got an error there. And hold the rudder tight against the wind. It should be and against the current. So that's a typo there. I don't have my pen, so I'll have to catch that. Let me try this again. I must have added this in, and I didn't realize it. Steady the course, declares the master. Steady the course, declares the master from the deck. Hold the rudder tight against the wind and against the current, and your fear and your doubt and upset and sense of drift and loss and ambush, even by the forces of seeming nature, and the draw of the seeming fates towards the maelstrom at port side and the siren rock starboard. Quick, declares the crew. Lash the master, oh, I know what this is. Lash the master to the mast and unstop his ears before we ourselves shut up our own hearing with wax. Unstop his ears before we ourselves shut up our own hearing with wax and throw all our weight to hold the ship straight on course. Thus we learn the secrets of the song of the demon sea hag while keeping our vision and direction intact against their sway. Will we soon enough go down and drown within the sea? Of course we will, but not before we first sail, like men. I know why I added that. Well, clearly that's a reference to Odysseus, right, and the sirens, having his crew lash him to the mast, unstop his ears from the wax. Well, his crew stuffed their ears so they couldn't hear the siren call of the sea hags, right, so he could hear that. So I'm saying the same thing, keeping the steady the course despite the siren call of distraction. I'll have to correct that one error. Number 18, the Feast of Offal, the banquet of our suffering. And a quote, "A fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it till afterwards." Proverbs 29:11. This strange meal consists of the waste and byproduct of unseasoned and unprincipled living, which we sometimes discard like filth where we live, think, and act. Every time we become confused, frustrated, upset, or angry, and we take pains to let all the world know, we are then spilling out our personal awful onto the world, spreading the filth of our hot, raw emotions onto everyone within range of our upset. The curious thing is that so many then take up the filth we flung at them to then consume it with seeming relish, making themselves immediately sick in the process and causing them to begin their own reciprocal feast of offal. And thus it spreads from one to another throughout the waking day and even at night while we dream our emotions into life. An awful banquet of filth, soiling deeply our peace and better living, poisoning our lives and the lives of everyone we know. I wish to cover my mouth and nose instead, to filter out the foul excess of undisciplined thought and living, to temper my emotions with my careless emotions and my careless consumption of the emotions of others. I will neither offer nor consume the feast. That's the goal. It's a worthwhile goal. I'm getting pretty good at it at this point, though. 19. The principle of distraction. And the sub-principle here is called playing in the sand. And I have a quote here. What is the course of the life of mortal men on the earth? Most men eddy about here and there, eat and drink, clatter, chatter and love and hate, gather and squander, and are raised aloft and hurled in the dust, striving blindly, achieving nothing, and then they die, perish, and no one asks who or what they have been, more than he asks what waves in the moonlit solitudes mild of the midmost ocean have swelled, foamed for a moment, and gone. Jeez. Oh, it's like getting knocked over with a poem. Oh, that's by Matthew Arnold. At every turn in life, we desire not to see. We turn our heads to look not away, but toward something which might cause us not to see. The thing we do not want is to observe the emptiness which resides behind and before and between and within it all. We do not wish to sense the negative silence of the universe's apparent vacuum of purpose. We do not want to know that death is forever beyond a night time soon to come, which we can neither know nor avoid. And so we busy ourselves with school and work and family and friends and hobbies and interests and gossip and joy and sorrow and peace and gratitude and anxiety and angst and ecstasy and the very fact of the observance that we are alive. Anything at all will do. Anything to avoid the awful aspect and great indifference of a soulless universe without God. Yet more and more, I am less inclined to fill the empty with my own fearful, distracted voice, increasingly preferring substance to filler, though substance is harder to find and still harder to hold, leaving me often with nothing at all. But I am all right with that now. I'm at last better without the distraction of life and death, which I know is not. Nevertheless, I continue to play in the sand, looking for sand, digging for sand, everywhere sand, like all of us, distracted by sand in our quest for sand. So much busyness, so much fuss and bluster, and so much restless apparent life. 20. Agency in the great indifference. Every individual life is an agent, and the products of its living are its artifacts. Subtract these away, and what's left is the vast landscape of the great indifference, characterized by an incapacity to observe or maintain any thought or opinion towards well-being, an utter lack of regard towards joy or suffering, a godless backdrop of unthinking, inanimate substance and time. God, I can't believe I packed so much into one paragraph. Ambitious. 21, or maybe I just didn't have the words to get it out right. 21, the best seat in the house, and a quote. I have learned, in whatever state I am therewith, to be content. That's by St. Paul. This place and time where I am now will suffice. I will have peace where and who I am at this time, and doing whatever engages my necessity and motive and the pursuit of virtue. Meanwhile, I will also strive towards better ends for myself and others, not as a replacement of my current circumstance and work, but rather as a natural improvement upon these. 22. The restless man. Sub-principle. Diminished potency. And a quote. It's one of my favorites by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Traveling is a fool's paradise. We owe to our first, and by the way, this is one quote that I've copied and pasted to many people who have written to me, especially when I was living in Japan, people who told me that their peace and happiness, they believed, would one day be found if they could just make it to Japan. Here's the quote. Traveling is a fool's paradise. We owe to our first journeys the discovery that place is nothing. At home, I dream that at Naples, at Rome, I can be intoxicated with beauty and lose my sadness. I pack my trunk, embrace my friends, embark on the sea, and at last wake up in Naples. And there, beside me, is the stern fact, the sad self, unrelenting, identical, that I fled from. I seek the Vatican and the palaces. I affect to be intoxicated with sights and suggestions, but I am not intoxicated. My giant goes with me wherever I go. Ralph Waldo Emerson. There must be someplace better than here, somewhere I can go to find satisfaction. If only I hadn't made those earlier bad choices in life, hadn't gone left when I should have gone right, or straight, or heck, even back. If I'd only decided to spend my life with that other person, or stayed in that other city, or taken a different job, any direction at all besides the direction I went, which led me now to this settled, safe, dull, and unsatisfying place in life. Oh, how I want now that something else. Maybe I can convince those I'm bound to here, that people who expect and deserve my life with them here, the ones I've committed to, that there is someplace better than here for us all. Maybe I can drag them all along with me, the spouse, the kids, the dog, and cat. We'll throw away all this crap we've gained cluttering the garage, things we brought attempting to settle our restless ticking, things which quell nothing for more than a day or a week, gaining us only further loss in their successful gain. Oh, damn it all to hell. Why am I stuck here in this place and doing this job and living in this home and behaving this way when none of it is really truly me? Why did I agree to this arrangement? Why can't I get away? This is what we think, and this is what we do when nature prompts us to new horizons. Nature has wired the young to press boundaries, to go beyond limits and to cross over mountains, to find new places where more and better might be found. This instinct and drive are one of the ways we survive. It's how humans spread across the globe. It's why, while we went extinct in one place, others of us lived on elsewhere. Not everyone is built this way. Men more than women, I suspect, but both sexes to be sure. And there will be no peace to those who are so driven. The only peace being the arrival of old age. Expect some relief in the mid-50s or thereabouts, about the time and in relative proportion to your waning bodily potencies. Until then, suffer if you ignore the call to the path, and even then, suffer on. 23, the path of wildness. The sub-principles here are the shadow dividend and Ulysses' ride. And I have the one bit from that poem, the direction of our first inclination. At every life crossroads, I will assess the fact that a decision must be made and then determine how much time I have to make it. And then collect my facts and consider the options and then decide at the appointed time If my facts are insufficient and there really is no more time, then I will listen to my gut instinct, let it have its say, and then perhaps move in that direction, confident in having made the best evaluation I could in a reasonable amount of time and with the resources and facts at my disposal. I will be all right with whatever outcome, even if the next end is death, and I will beware the hard benefits which come of such change. The improvements which hurt, but which can be had in no other way, the shadow dividends of the pain of change and the loss of what is no longer needed, and I will suffer well through the decided pathways, like Ulysses riding the storm and temptation which he chose for his own. 24. The Great Life Adventure. Leaves blown in the wind. And a quote by Dr. Johnson. He who continues the same course of life in the same place will have little to tell. Dr. Johnson. Embark when you are young upon that beckoning dream and adventure. Let it be the centerpiece and point of reference for the man or woman who you will become. Let the experience inform and guide your active philosophy, as well as the development of your own living objectives, principles, and standards. 25. The risk of avoiding risk. Sub-principles: risk management and to err on the side of family. Life presents us with a variety of risks which we must attend to. Our parents in society commonly advise us to get an education, find a good job, and then settle down to a safe and sane life, making and raising babies with a decided worthy another. These are good, responsible things to do, but I offer there is a deeper risk which also needs attention. The risk of living a long and healthy life without allowing ourselves the chance to develop and engage our deeper self, or experiencing life without much challenging adventure, or living in such a way as to keep too much distance from the risks which yield the rich and satisfying reward of discovery, maturity, survival, and growth. So, attend to both types of risk. The practical aims of school, work, family, security, and money, as well as perhaps the less practical, though often quite worthwhile risk of not becoming the person or living the life of our dreams. Avoid the trap of managing risks to the extent of walling ourselves completely into our own safe, secure, and familiar coffin. Though when in doubt, always err on the side of family, even if such living might at times feel like a coffin, as such efforts are usually in alignment with our deeper and perhaps our only true life mandate and purpose, namely getting our genes successfully into the next generation, passing, as Emerson might say, our ripened being into tomorrow. I feel that more than ever now, especially now at the age of having brought my daughter to successful adulthood. 26. I don't know what that is. I can't know my hands to do it. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 6. Sub-principles. 26 is sin and damnation. Sub-principles are falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, authority, rumor, and gossip. It is a sin to invest our expenditures. It is a sin to invest our expectations with hope, which may be corrupted or foiled by fortune. It is also a sin to believe things without good reason, to acquiesce for the sake of comfort or security or peace, or to simply avoid the discomfort of not knowing. The penalty for this sin is damnation in the here and now, which is the only time we will ever really have. Damned for our unreasoned want, damned for our unreasoned belief, damned for our thoughtless, careless communication. 27. Complete oblivion. Sub-principles. No final reunion, no final reconciliation, and no final justice. And a quote. So man lieth down and riseth not, till the heavens be no more. They shall not awake, nor be raised out of their sleep. That's from the Bible, the book of Job, 14:12. Soon the light within the mind will wink out. my life will come to an end. The storehouse of my memory will lose its electricity, which is the means of its maintenance and growth. The columns of my mental library and lyceum will quickly crumble and fall, the roof cave in, the foundations turn to sand. The philosopher is gone, evaporated to atoms. There will be then no last reunion with loved ones, no reconciliation of hard, careless, or misspoke words, no satisfaction of wanting justice. The whole thing simply blows away with the new morning's breeze. 28. The Season of Philosophy. And a quote. Philosophy wields her own authority. She appoints her own time and does not allow it to be appointed for her. Seneca the Younger. Think and record your thoughts while you can. See how the sun is fading now, dropping near the horizon? You will not survive the coming night. If you fail to record your words now, right now, they will never come again. Or maybe, if the words arrive again in some new form some distant day hence, will you have the body, will, or constitution to record what you hear? Will your mind still function well enough to put the words together in the correct order? Will you have enough energy then for the effort? Will your hands perhaps tremble too much, or your medicine dull your nerves, or your broken self simply refuse to cooperate? Will you remain tuned to the muse? These are very real risks. So instead, keep a pad and pencil handy now, or a recorder, or camera, or pull yourself aside when the muse and pull yourself aside when the muse speaks. Attend to her words and prepare your thoughts and philosophy as best you can while you can. 29. Script writing. Life presents us always until death with an almost clean and clear canvas of whatever available time we've left. We may use this canvas to either live whatever life happens to us, or to take more active control of our days, hours, and minutes, in order to seemingly manage and guide our path according to our seeming will and in alignment with our hard-won and decided values, goals, and best practice. This script writing requires effort and imagination, as well as optimism if we are to aim our living in the perceived and decided direction of virtue, and to make the most of whatever brief days we have yet the chance to live, experience, and hopefully enjoy. 30. Bullseye aim. And if you're wondering why people are always going this way, it's because the current's going that way and the surfers are getting pulled across the beach behind, and they have to get out and walk back. When I get in the water in a minute, it'll drag me that way too. 30. Bullseye aim. Our best ambition is to achieve our goals and objectives to the extent that we can feel our effort is complete. That is often a pretty high mark, even with a pessimist's aim. The fact is, we frequently fall short, well short, or at least short enough to cause us to bluster or regret that we even tried. For myself, I will be satisfied if I have made a good and honest effort. There's really, otherwise, no time to lose. 31. The uphill climb. Sub-principle, the open ocean swim. I will rise each morning and turn my attention to the uphill grade, to the slope which leads up, to the path which resists my climb, yet yields ever widening horizons with each step forward. I will move forward and up. I will rarely stop, and I will never got totally plastered by